In my past life, both my brother and I were the great hopes of our family. My father took my brother to the frontier, where he was meant to build a military career. But he was timid by nature, loving only embroidery and music. In the end, he suffered defeat on the battlefield and died. I was sent to the palace to become an imperial consort. But I had a fiery temper, ready to draw my sword at the slightest provocation. I was chased through the imperial gardens by the emperor and killed by a hail of arrows. When I opened my eyes again, my brother and I had been reborn together. The imperial decree appointing me as a consort arrived at our home. My brother clung to my leg, weeping. "Sister, my only sister, I beg you, go to war instead. I'll be the consort for you." In our past lives, my brother and I both met tragic ends. He was refined and courteous, skilled in both zither and embroidery. Yet my father sent him to the frontier to earn military glory, where he ultimately perished in a crushing defeat. I heard his body was severed in two, a most undignified end. Though I grew up on the frontier, adept at horseback riding and archery, I entered the palace as an imperial consort. I fought the empress to the bitter end. In the end, neither of us emerged victorious. I lost my brother, and she lost her father. The emperor brought my stepsister into the palace, telling me she was the love of his life. News of my brother's death reached the imperial capital just as the emperor was celebrating his stepsister's birthday banquet. My stepmother said, "Each person has their fate." Second brother died standing tall, without dishonoring the Pei family name. With that, she began recounting the emperor's beautiful love for my stepsister. In the palace henceforth, sisters united will have each other's support. Family, above all, must be whole and complete. Her words seemed sincere, perhaps she truly desired reunion. A kind-hearted soul like mine cannot bear to see others' wishes go unfulfilled. But there was a problem. For a family to be truly whole, no one could be missing. My brother was dead, his living presence could never bring genuine reunion. When helping someone, one must see it through to the end. I drew my treasured black iron blade, first slaying my stepmother, then pursuing the emperor into the imperial gardens. I pursued. He fled, no escape for him. Alas, he had outside help. A hail of arrows struck me down. But it matters not. Before dying, I slew my stepsister, newly crowned empress. I wonder if the emperor plans to execute my father. An entire clan wiped out, now our family can truly reunite in the afterlife. Chaos engulfs me. I cannot explain this. But I have reborn. And I suspect my brother has been reborn too. Peiyu burst into my room, pale and distraught. "Sister, you must leave now. Once the imperial decree appointing the consort arrives, it will be too late. With your explosive temper, you're unfit to be an imperial consort." My brother died young, knowing only that I struggled in the harem, constantly clashing with the empress. He never learned of my solo rampage through the imperial garden after his death. Had he known, he'd have urged me to flee even more desperately. Before I could respond, my father cheerfully summoned me. "Pei Yan, come receive the imperial decree. His Majesty's boundless grace, he wishes to appoint you imperial consort." Peiyu paled at the news, his lips trembling as he murmured, "It's over. Even in this second life, I still couldn't save my elder sister?" I thought to myself, he'd be better off saving himself. As the old saying goes, where there's a stepmother, there's a stepfather. The ancients truly spoke the truth. After my mother died, my stepmother entered the household. Fearing her cruelty, my uncle took me to the frontier for protection, while Peiyu was sent to Dongnan Mountain for studies. Beyond his books, Peiyu devoted himself to painting and music, refined and handsome, yet utterly incapable of manual labor. I, however, excelled at every rough task, beating chickens, scolding dogs, horseback riding, archery, yet failed miserably in virtue, grace, speech, or achievement. At festive banquets, the embroidery I presented was all done by my brother. If he'd stayed stationed at the frontier this lifetime, once our uncle died, he'd likely have been beheaded. But when the imperial edict arrived at our doorstep, even if we wanted to flee, there was no chance. I patted Peiyu's shoulder, signaling him to stay calm. We'll meet force with force, water with earth. If need be, I'll slay them all. What's there to fear after dying once? Peiyu's eyes lit up at my words. Sister, you too? I gave him an affirming look, then led him outside to kneel and receive the edict. While bowing in gratitude for the emperor's grace, my mind raced. How could Peiyu and I find a way to survive this? Surely I couldn't just walk in wielding a blade and slash the emperor to death. It might feel satisfying, but that would be a waste of my rebirth. My father and stepmother beamed with joy, repeatedly urging me to serve the emperor well once in the palace and not bring shame upon our family. The empress holds immense power, be wary of her once you enter the palace. My half-sister Pei-Su's eyes brimmed with tears. It wasn't that she was reluctant to let me go, she simply adored the emperor. Truth be told, the emperor felt the same way about her. But he couldn't stand up to the empress. Fearing Pei-Su would be bullied in the palace, he pinned the blame squarely on me. This allowed the empress to focus all her efforts on persecuting me while he spent his nights with Pei-Su under the moonlit flowers. Once the empress fell from power, the emperor immediately brought Pei-Su into the palace. Damn it all. I'd never held a needle in my life, yet I ended up embroidering Pei-Su's wedding gown. Who could put up with that? My father was about to keep nagging me, but I couldn't bear it anymore and slammed my hand on the table. I need some peace. The table trembled, a crack appearing. My father trembled too, likely recalling how my mother, in her prime, had once cleaved the rock garden in the small courtyard with a single stroke. He cautiously led my stepmother and Pei-Su out, not even daring to make a sound as he closed the door. My brother asked if we could run. Run? How? What's the point of living in hiding? My brother stammered. Then, you go back to the palace. And I'll keep fighting? We'll both prevent trouble before it starts. He rubbed his eyes and sighed deeply. Sis, I really want to be an official, but I just can't be a military officer. Those long swords and spears? I can't use a single one. Peiyu grew increasingly despondent. Better if I go to court and you fight. At least I can embroider and paint, might even charm the emperor. I froze. Don't say that. Please don't say that. But it's not impossible. Is it? That dog of an emperor never set foot in my room last lifetime anyway. I studied my brother closely. Peiyu and I share the same mother, we're nearly the same height now. Though he's a touch fairer and more delicate than I am. If he were to apply makeup, draw his brows, and don women's clothing, he'd likely look more like a girl than I do. He still wore a troubled expression, mentally preparing for his frontier journey, when I suddenly interrupted him. What if you went to the palace? Peiyu froze. I was just joking. How could I, a man, enter the palace? I arched an eyebrow and smiled. Smoothing his hair, why not? Haven't you already attended banquets in my place? Dressed as a woman? Several times? My brother had truly racked his brains for my sake. Fearing the capital's folk would call me uncouth from the frontier, he attended banquets in skirts, mastered an uncannily authentic accent as sweet as a nightingale, and composed poetry and paintings in my name. Even after I entered the palace, the empress repeatedly asked why I'd stopped writing verse. But entering the palace is different, isn't it? Ah, practice makes perfect. I'll go to the frontier to fight alongside my uncle, while you enter the palace as a fake imperial consort. You can't help my uncle, But I can. As long as he remains military governor. Even if we set fire to the emperor's audience hall, His Majesty would still praise the blaze as splendid. Peiyu remained silent. After a long pause, he clenched his teeth and asked, "Does the emperor not use the back door?" I smacked him right on the forehead. What on earth do scholars think about day in and day out? The emperor is in such a rush to get this consort. Someone unaware might think his mother died and he's rushing to marry for good luck. The above remarks contain some personal grudges, mainly. I'm still bitter I didn't finish him off in my past life. Peiyu dressed up and took my place in the imperial carriage bound for the palace. I left behind a letter, mounted a horse alone, and rode straight for Yanmen Pass. I heard that when Peiyu entered the palace, my father was deeply reluctant to part with him. Everyone praised my father for his profound love for his daughter, marveling at how difficult it must have been to raise the 2 children left by his late wife. He never realized he was left with a son too weak to care for himself. The frontier remained unchanged, golden sand swirling, ancient trees cloaked in dusk, crows gathering. Peiyu's journey to Yanmen Pass back then was out of necessity. My father personally cut off his path to officialdom. But this lifetime, I came of my own free will. My uncle, the military governor, commands the frontier with a valiant and battle-hardened force. Pity the renowned general, he perished not on the battlefield, but in the court. In my past life, my father colluded with the emperor to withhold provisions and reinforcements. My uncle defended the city gates to the death, sacrificing himself for the people within. Truthfully, had he simply retreated with his troops, he might have avoided this calamity. But the invading Turkic commander was brutally savage. With every city he captured, he ordered his soldiers to slaughter the populace, leaving scarcely 1 in 10 survivors. Such is the way of the world, the virtuous seldom live long. Cunning villains like my father and the emperor, however, bask in glory and wealth, towering above all others. But it matters little. The Peiyu of the past couldn't aid my uncle, I can. With this resolve, I spurred my horse onward, racing straight for the army's encampment, a narrow path through barren hills. My uncle, expecting Peiyu, had sent men to greet the visitor. The one who arrived was my uncle's deputy commander, Su Hengji. Having heard that Peiyu was a scholarly gentleman, he had even arranged a carriage. "Second young master, you must be weary from the journey?" Su Hengji dismounted, his sword-like brows and starry eyes radiating a heroic presence. In the sunlight, his silver armor gleamed brilliantly. My gaze lingered briefly on his face. In my past life, he too had perished in the battle to defend the city. Later, Peiyu had entrusted someone to deliver a jade pendant to me. The jade was fine, but the carving was crude. I knew it was Su Hengji who had carved it himself. Seeing me motionless atop the mound, Su Hengji stepped forward. "Scared? Your sister wasn't afraid when she entered the palace. What are you afraid of?" I turned, lifting my conical hat. "Hengji, it's me." Su Hengji startled, stumbling back several paces. "How could it be you?" After a moment, Su Hengji grasped the crucial point. "Then, who was the one who entered the palace?" I gave him a confirming glance. "Peiyu." Su Hengji's expression darkened instantly. Though the desolate mountains and wilderness held no one, he instinctively lowered his voice. "This is treason punishable by death. If discovered, both you and Peiyu will die." Leaning against the tree, I curved my lips into a smile. Even without treason, Peiyu and I would die anyway. If uncle were still the military governor, commanding a mighty army, neither Peiyu nor I would ever face danger. What is there to fear? Do you think I'd be pleased if I entered the palace? Su Hengji's eyes flickered, his lashes lowered. After a moment, he exhaled deeply. "I am not pleased. I am not pleased that Ian enters the palace. Then that settles it. Hengji, mount up. I swung onto my horse, turning back with a smile. Let me see if your riding skills have deteriorated in my absence. Nonsense. Seeing me appear in his command tent, Uncle slammed his fist on the table in fury. If either of you had come to harm, how could I ever face your mother? Uncle came from humble origins, wandering with my mother to survive when he was young. After mother died, he treated me as his own daughter. Every martial skill I possess was taught by him personally. Compared to my biological father, Uncle was more like a father to both me and Peiyu. Thinking of how tragically he died in my past life, my heart couldn't help but tremble. Uncle, if I go to the palace instead and Peiyu goes to the frontier, will that lead to a good outcome? Peiyu studied at Dong'an Mountain since childhood, yet the emperor disdained him, barring him from pursuing official rank. People all assumed Peiyu's poetry failed to win the emperor's favor. Nonsense. That incompetent fool of an emperor would never bother reading a scholar's verses. It was my father who personally destroyed Peiyu's future. Shock flashed across Uncle's weathered face. What does this have to do with your father? Even a tiger wouldn't devour its own cub. Uncle could never have imagined my father harming his own son. Pei-su and His Majesty had feelings for each other. The sachets she embroidered herself still hung from His Majesty's sash. Why then did the imperial decree to enter the palace fall upon me? I lifted my head, my expression tinged with faint sarcasm. Because the empress holds great power. Neither my father nor the emperor could bear to see Pei-su suffer. So they sent me to the palace to challenge the empress. Uncle. Father's blade has long been poised over both my sisters and my own heads. Seizing the moment while my uncle was too stunned to speak, I pressed on. It's not just me and Peiyu. You, too, are a thorn in the emperor's side. Your military achievements are legendary. You hold the rank of military governor, with no titles left to bestow upon you. The armies under your command are invincible. Have you considered that it is not only the Turks who are intimidated? Uncle. Enraged and alarmed, the Turks are watching us like tigers waiting to pounce. How could His Majesty even entertain such thoughts? Better to face foreign foes than traitorous servants. His Majesty would rather see border villagers suffer under the Turks than relinquish his power. My words were earnest. Uncle. This isn't recklessness. I refuse to be a stepping stone for others, dying without understanding why. After a long moment, he exhaled, collapsing into his chair as if drained of strength. He knew I never spoke without reason, nor would I deceive him with lies just to cause trouble. Leave me alone. I need to think. I saluted and rose in silence. As I reached the tent entrance, my uncle suddenly called out, Peiyu is in the palace. Could he? His voice wavered with hesitation. After a moment's pause, he asked, could he be discovered as a man? My reply was firm, no. Of course not. The emperor was currently engrossed in his affair with Pei-su, utterly without the inclination to seek me out. After all, Pei-su had told him countless tales of her sister's exploits on the frontier. In the emperor's eyes, I was a fearsome woman, ruthless and brutal. He wouldn't have the heart to look for me. All I need to do is represent the Pei family and keep the empress in check. Peiyu has been through death once, he should be able to handle this minor task. If he can't, then as his elder sister, I'm too far away to help him in his hour of need. All I can do is light a stick of incense for his soul. Finally arriving safely at the frontier, the wind and sand blowing against me, my heart felt as though it had finally settled. In my past life, my actions within the palace were constantly hindered. I could only watch helplessly as my uncle and Peiyu met tragic ends. Thankfully, I now have the chance to start over. This life, regardless of victory or defeat, I, Pei Yan, will never die in such a pathetic manner again. Not far away, Su Hengji stood waiting beneath a tree, his eyes half-closed in drowsiness. Dust speckled his hair. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows across his face. As if eyes grew on his crown, he lifted his gaze the moment I emerged. What did the general say? I shrugged. What else could he say? I'm already here, hardly worth sending me back. He sighed and shook his head. The general's always been powerless against you. But this time, you've been far too bold. Ian, you must conceal your identity. Su Hengji's expression was grave. The military wasn't solely the general's domain, the emperor's reach extended far. I smiled. If his reach is too long, we'll just cut it off. I reached out, deftly drawing Su Hengji's long sword from his waist, twirled it in a flourish, and struck the tree trunk with a single swing. Hengji, having come this far, am I supposed to just sit and wait for death? Su Hengji's eyes lit up as he handed me the scabbard. Of course not. That night, my uncle summoned me. By candlelight. Hesitation still lingered in his expression. Ian, I believe what you said today. But is joining the army for Peiyu truly the wisest course? His words were earnest, carrying an elder's deepest hopes for a young woman. You are, after all, a girl. Surely you won't actually fight on the battlefield? Why not? Am I weaker than the soldiers under your command? Uncle, in these turbulent times, if a woman lacks ability and merely drifts with the current, can she truly expect a good outcome? If we're talking about wealth and status, wouldn't it be better for me to enter the palace? At least I'd have food on the table, sheltered from wind and rain. Even if wars erupted and the Turks invaded the Central Plains, I'd be the last to die. But is that truly good? To entrust one's very life to others, I refuse such an existence. I'd rather endure hardship on the frontier than be a delicate flower in the imperial capital, unable to withstand the slightest storm. Uncle gazed at me for a long moment before sighing deeply. He rose and retrieved a brocade box from behind him. Within lay a dagger, its blade gleaming coldly. Candlelight reflected off it, illuminating half my face. Very well. Then I shall entrust you with this family heirloom dagger. Since you, Ian, have sworn this oath, prove yourself worthy, and never speak of regret. I took the box, knelt upright, and kowtowed 3 times to my uncle. I shall not betray the general's trust. Good. After remaining in the camp as Peiyu, my actions proved far more convenient than in my previous life. My uncle assigned trusted aides to attend to me. I also commissioned custom-made boots and shoes. After these alterations, I appeared considerably more robust, radiating a youthful vigor. Even acquaintances in my presence dared not recognize me as Pei Yan. After all, who in their right mind would abandon the pampered life of an imperial consort to endure the sandstorms of the frontier? But I was not in my right mind. Since our earnest conversation, my uncle frequently brought me to the military camp. Only Su Hengji knew the truth. While my uncle and I were well received, he alone worried daily. Hengji, ease your mind. Su Hengji shook his head with a bitter smile. As long as the war rages on, I cannot find peace. We walked out while discussing the movements of the Turks. Suddenly, a commotion erupted in the distance. 2 groups stood facing each other at the edge of the training ground, swords drawn and bows cocked. Were it not for the military prohibition against brawling, they would likely have clashed in the next instant. Each faction had a leader. One side comprised soldiers under my uncle's command, mostly from border counties, poor families who joined the army out of desperation. The other consisted of imperial capital nobles seeking to polish their credentials, eager to earn military merits for future political advancement back home. What's the commotion about? Got nothing better to do? I called out to stop them. Seeing Su Hengji and me approach, Qian Yu, the centurion under my uncle's command, sheathed his partially drawn sword with a cold snort and explained. We request Deputy General Pei to settle this dispute. On the other side, a fair-skinned, somewhat delicate-looking young noble sneered. A bunch of lowly commoners. Do you even know who I am? Daring to compete with me for the training platform? I had met this man once before. Hu Jiangnan, son of the Marquis of Chongyan and cousin to His Majesty, was the most privileged among the young nobles here seeking prestige. Beside him, someone briefly explained the situation. Today, Qian Yu and his men were supposed to train on the platform, but Hu Jiangnan's group had seized the spot. The two factions, already at odds, immediately erupted into a quarrel. I cast a cold glance at Hu Jiangnan and said in a chilling tone, Hu Jiangnan, once you enter the military camp, you are a soldier regardless of status. The military has its own rules. You violated military discipline by quarreling with others. I sentence you to 10 strokes of the cane. Any objections? Hu Jiangnan's expression darkened. You dare? I lowered my eyelashes, hiding the mockery in my eyes. Why wouldn't I dare? The emperor fears my uncle and often fills the military with his people. As the emperor's cousin, I've disliked Hu Jiangnan for a long time. Guards! Military law! Drag him away for 10 strokes. Hu Jiangnan drew his sword with a clang. I am Hu of the Chongyan Marquisate, son of Princess Ning'an. Who dares touch me? Those around hesitated, exchanging nervous glances. Unless absolutely necessary, no one wished to offend the powerful. Seeing this, Hu Jiangnan laughed smugly. Pei Yu, don't think I don't know your background. What are you playing at here? You're just a failed scholar who couldn't pass the imperial exams. Yet you've become a deputy commander in the army. It's laughable. I curved my lips. Is that so? Turning, I grabbed a nearby military baton and lashed it down on Hu Jiangnan's knee. Today I'll show you what it means to be skilled in both the literary and martial arts. Hu Jiangnan let out a wail as I knocked him to his knees. I flexed my knuckles, then swung the baton, landing 10 solid blows on him as I chased after him. The pampered young master, never having been struck before, wailed pitifully under my blows. After finishing him off, I leaned the staff against a post and declared loudly, I know many of you secretly look down on me. A bookworm who's never even seen a battlefield, what right do I have to command you? I mimicked the soldier's coarse banter with a rough voice, though my expression remained unruffled. Their disdain was understandable. After all, I was new here. Even with my uncle's endorsement, most saw me as just a greenhorn, unable to lift a finger or carry a load. Becoming a deputy commander out of nowhere, I'd never win their respect. Today was the perfect chance. Anyone still doubting me? Step up and prove yourself. I kicked away Hu Jiangnan and leaped onto the training platform. Come on then. Once this chance is gone, it won't come again. The crowd below exchanged glances. Yet no one dared move. I wasn't in a hurry, waiting leisurely. If no one steps forward, any future slander against me will be dealt with by military law. I'll take him. A burly man in cloth armor below the platform gritted his teeth and stepped forward. He leapt up, a long sword in hand, towering half a head above me. He looked down with contempt. Lieutenant Pei keeps his word. If I wound you, don't come crying to your daddy. I curled my lips, tapping the ground with my baton. Enough talk. The soldier roared and charged with his blade. I sidestepped effortlessly. Too slow. As I spoke, my baton whipped through the air with fierce momentum, lashing the soldier with a stinging wind. Seizing his moment of pain and evasion, I rose on my toes and kicked his blade-wielding wrist. The immense force sent the sword flying from his grasp. My baton now pressed horizontally against his throat. That's enough. I tilted my chin up and grinned. Next. Seeing me dispatch the burly soldier so cleanly, the soldiers below grew excited. Before he could step down, another leaped up impatiently. Let me exchange a few blows with Deputy General Pei. After flinging 17 men aside in succession, I felt a bit spent and leaned against my baton to rest. How about that? Deputy General Pei is formidable. The roaring cheers below drew glances from several generals emerging from the command tent. Upon hearing the cause, they couldn't help but chuckle. Truly, heroes emerge in youth. Commander, Deputy General Pei truly embodies your former glory. We knew Deputy General Pei excelled in scholarship, but never imagined his martial arts were this exceptional. My uncle and I exchanged a distant glance, both unable to suppress a hint of amusement at the remarks. If it were truly Pei Yu here, he'd likely be carried away by now. My brother truly is a delicate flower, a slight breeze could blow him away. Thinking of Pei Yu, my smile faltered. No news had come from the capital. I wondered how he fared in the palace. But given the current situation, no news was good news. After dismissing the crowd, I leapt down from the training platform. Turning around, I spotted Hu Jiangyan crouched beneath a tree. What are you doing sitting there? Hu Jiangyan pouted, fidgeting awkwardly like an unmarried maiden. If you don't speak, I'm leaving. With that, I turned away without another word. Moments later, Hu Jiangyan's voice reached me from behind. Pei Yu. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said you couldn't pass the imperial exams. You're better than me. I froze, then turned back. Hu Jiangyan had already vanished in a flash, leaving me staring in astonishment at the setting sun. It was rare for an aristocrat's son to utter such human words. After sparring on the training platform, the grumbling about me within the military camp subsided considerably. That's how barracks work, might makes right. But my journey to Yanmen Pass wasn't solely to succeed my uncle. Though I harbored personal motives, I genuinely sought to save the people of Dingbei Commandery. In my past life, after my uncle's death, the army was leaderless. With no capable figures in the court, the Turks seized the opportunity to breach the pass and advance deep into the Central Plains. Border commanderies, led by Dingbei, fell one after another. The Turks were brutal and bloodthirsty, leaving countless dead and wounded among the people. Those displaced by their rampage found themselves in a living hell wherever the Turks passed. The Ashina clan revered the Wolf King, claiming descent from him. Born of nomadic ways, they understood only the law of the jungle, fearing might but not virtue. Conciliatory policies would likely prove ineffective. My uncle studied the sand table and nodded. Ayan. What do you propose we do about the Turkic Khanate? Naturally, we fight them into submission. But the grasslands are vast and sparsely populated. Even if we drive the Ashina clan back to their homeland, allowing them to recuperate over winter, they will surely stir unrest along our borders again next year. This is no long-term solution. I've heard the Ashina clan is not a monolithic force. Their brothers and kin now aid one another only because the pie of the Celestial Empire tempts them to fight. If we can sow discord among them, leaving them preoccupied with internal strife, our subsequent attack will be far easier. Uncle laughed heartily. Well said. He pointed at the sand table, outlining his strategic plan. Yet a wave of bitterness welled up within me. In my past life, Uncle had similarly devised plans for the borderlands people. Yet the Emperor feared my uncle's growing influence. He tacitly allowed my father to murder my uncle's entire family. 100,000 soldiers perished in battle. 3 frontier counties fell. So many innocent lives lost, all for the Emperor's hollow justification that balancing factions requires sacrifice. Pitiful bones by the Wooding River still haunt the dreams of springtime brides. What meaning could an emperor possess, one who only understood the manipulation of power, whose vision was narrow and stubborn, and who harbored no compassion for his subjects? Uncle, even though the Turks are a nation of soldiers, especially skilled in horsemanship, our dynasty is not without its own masters. We have held our own in several engagements. Why have we consistently been unable to overcome the Ashina clan? Uncle paused, a sigh escaping his lips. Yet no words followed. Uncle was a man of honor, profoundly loyal and principled. The late emperor had recognized his talents and, on his deathbed, entrusted him to serve as regent. He kept his promise, serving the emperor diligently on the battlefield. The reason he never captured the Turkic court was the emperor's repeated obstruction. The emperor is exceptionally suspicious, firmly believing in the art of maintaining balance. If Uncle had conquered the Turkic court, would that not have been a triumph that overshadowed his sovereign? Seeing the hesitation on Uncle's face, I said no more. As the saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. My uncle would understand eventually. I know you're deeply disappointed in His Majesty, and I know he is no wise ruler. But the affairs of state cannot be explained in a few words. Caught within the system, I often find myself bound by circumstances, unable to act solely on personal impulses. You need only know this: His Majesty ascending that throne was the best outcome forged through complex political maneuvering. I let out a cold laugh. Uncle, this complex maneuvering means compromising with the aristocratic clans, appeasing the nobility. But has anyone considered the common people? What of the 100,000 soldiers guarding our borders? They've been compromised countless times without ever knowing it. Uncle was about to speak further, but I waved him off and left the military tent. Still, I understood his concerns. True, he commanded a mighty army. Yet within its ranks, he wasn't the sole authority. The emperor had placed many of his own men within its ranks. To forge this 100,000-strong force into a solid, united front required winning several more decisive victories. Only then could the emperor's men quietly fade away. We couldn't just suddenly rise up, shout "We're done with this," and rebel against the damned emperor. In warfare, the greatest fear is marching without just cause. Everything else could be planned carefully, but one thing could not wait. Winter would pass. With troops strong and horses fit, the Turks would soon march south again. We must seize this chance to drive them back home. After consulting with my uncle, I led a small contingent of soldiers to first mop up the scattered Turkic forces near Yenmen Pass, sparing the local women and children from their harassment. With each successful raid, my reputation within the army grew stronger. When the men called me Deputy General Pei, it was with genuine respect, calculating the day the main Turkic army would press against our borders. Just as in my previous life, my father was personally selected by His Majesty to lead troops to Dingbei Commandery. In my previous life, my uncle perished just 3 months later. My father corresponded with Khagan Huaili, but my uncle failed to guard against him. Tactics were prematurely exposed, and the garrison troops stationed within Yenmen Pass were sent straight into the Turkic commander's tent under the guise of formal tribute. My uncle died under mysterious circumstances, slandered as a reckless traitor who betrayed the border defenses, leading to the loss of 100,000 troops. After my uncle's death, Pei narrowly escaped with his life, only to be forced back to the frontier by my father. He too perished in these endless sands, left utterly alone in the palace, powerless and helpless. I could only watch as my loved ones met tragic ends one after another. Thankfully, heaven granted me a second chance. 3 days later, my father arrived bearing an imperial edict. At our first meeting, before he could speak, his eyes welled with tears, a picture of a loving father. "Erlang, you've grown so dark and thin." He wiped his eyes and pulled a pouch from his robe, handing it to me. "Your eldest sister embroidered this herself. She thinks of you day and night in the palace. You must take good care of yourself. Only if you and Yang are well can I face your mother after I'm gone." Hearing this, my uncle and Su Hengji behind me both looked extremely awkward. 1,000 words boiled down to one: "Father, you truly can't recognize your own children." I took the pouch. The embroidery was exquisite, Clearly Peiyu's handiwork. Clearing my throat to suppress a laugh. I stopped my father from uttering more shocking remarks. Only after my father and uncle had left did Su Hengji lean close and whisper, "Is that really your father? Authentic as can be. Seems Peiyu put on quite the performance." I curved my lips in a smile. My brother has more feminine charm than I do. Su Hengji lowered his lashes and murmured softly, "I prefer women with a bold and spirited demeanor." TSK. As the imperial inspector personally appointed by the emperor, my father began frequenting the commander's tent. No one would suspect him. Who could have imagined he'd abandon his privileged life to defect to the enemy? Oh, perhaps it was the emperor's orders. Under these circumstances, it's hard to say whether he truly betrayed his country. Night fell, and all sounds ceased. I entered the commander's tent carrying an intercepted carrier pigeon. The letter lay on the table. Candlelight flickered, casting a dim glow as my uncle finished reading the secret missive. His face darkening. I had men watching my father. Tonight. He sneaked out of camp and found a secluded spot to release the pigeon. The moment it vanished from his sight, it was shot down. The evidence of my father's treason now lay before my uncle. What is Pei Shichao doing? Leaking the defense maps? If Yanmen Pass falls, where will the border people go? Uncle, was the defense map the only thing in the letter? I looked up, my expression mocking. What if my father wasn't defecting, but remaining loyal to the throne? Pei Yan, mind your words. I pinched the secret letter between my fingers and gave it a sharp shake. Isn't it all laid out clearly in this letter? His Majesty would rather sacrifice 3 frontier counties than allow you to grow too powerful. Uncle, you claim loyalty to the throne and love for the nation, but to whom? Exactly? Is an emperor who can abandon his own subjects truly worthy of the lives of 100,000 soldiers defending the frontier? Seizing the moment as Uncle's face twisted in fury, I pressed on. Did you see the shoes my father wore today? The uppers were made of shoe brocade. Do you know how precious shoe brocade is? Not only is it costly, but it's delicate, it can't even touch water. Yet my father wore it casually. Out and about. For frontier folk, having enough to eat is a luxury. Soldiers can't even get proper winter coats. Yet in the capital, fools like my father are as plentiful as weeds. While the wealthy feast on wine and meat, the poor freeze to death on the streets. While soldiers risk their lives defending our homeland, the nobles in the capital only see us as lowly and uncivilized. Uncle, we must protect the simple, innocent people of Great Xia, not those privileged nobles who only know how to indulge and bleed the nation dry. Uncle closed his eyes briefly. His Majesty chose your father for this task to reap the benefits without lifting a finger. Correct? If successful, the Zhou family's army would be crippled. And with my death, His Majesty could sleep soundly. If it failed, your father would be exposed. And as his in-law, I would be implicated, still advantageous for His Majesty. Uncle, you've commanded armies for years, you're no fool ignorant of court politics. You simply never imagined the emperor you've loyally guarded for so long would disregard the people's safety for the sake of political games. What a pity, the dragon throne is occupied by such a heartless pig, utterly devoid of a benevolent ruler's spirit. Candlelight washed over my face. In the bronze mirror, my eyes shone like stars. 2 flickering flames. Uncle, we are but fish on the chopping block. Are you truly willing to drag the borderland people and 10,000 soldiers to their deaths for a dim-witted ruler? After altering the secret letter's contents, I released the carrier pigeon once more. My uncle began to guard against my father. He took that intercepted secret letter and spent the night in earnest discussion with his confidants. The next day, my father walked straight into a trap meticulously laid for him. My father could die, but he must not die as a traitor. At this point, my uncle and I had no just cause. Those who follow the righteous path gain widespread support, those who stray lose it. Since ancient times, He who wins the people's hearts wins the world. A hasty defection would only earn him the label of a traitor. Yet my uncle commanded formidable forces. With the emperor far away and the sky above, as long as the people near Dingbei Commandery recognized and appreciated him, he would have won their hearts. The emperor could never truly check my uncle's power. My task was simple: to lead the troops, drive the Turks back to their homeland, and make them tremble at the sight of my banners. Erlang, you're not skilled in warfare. With the campaign starting tomorrow, it's better for you to stay behind. Father called me aside to dissuade me from joining my uncle. I stared at him, speechless for a long time. In my past life, had he also tried to dissuade Peiyu? It was likely the last shred of conscience left in him, unwilling to watch his own son die alongside his brother. That's why my father sent Peiyu away. But when Dingbei Commandery fell, those who died so horribly, whose sons were they? Whose fathers? Father was right. Tomorrow, I won't be a hindrance to my uncle. My father smiled with relief, handing me a letter and instructing me to deliver it by fast horse to the post station tomorrow. Holding the letter, I stood beneath the trees. Yellow dust swirled in the air, day after day, unchanged. So this was how Peiyu had survived in my previous life. Yet it was merely prolonging a miserable existence. For power and to eliminate all threats, Peiyu ultimately met his end at Yanmen Pass. A father without compassion, a husband without loyalty. My father deserved this life of being outmaneuvered by me. Had he been a kind father, perhaps neither I nor Peiyu would have gone astray. Our family was fundamentally flawed from the start. Now that the truth is laid bare, it only follows logic. Will father join the front lines? A faint smirk of satisfaction touched my father's lips, naturally. Your old man here once fought alongside your uncle. Is that so? Father never mentioned it before. That was ages ago. Why bring it up now? Behind us. Uncle's voice drifted over. What are you two talking about? I called out. Father says he fought alongside uncle in the past. Uncle smiled, his expression tinged with wistful nostalgia. Sure, Chow served as my deputy commander back then. He was skilled in martial arts and handsome. Your mother took a liking to him at first sight. I lowered my eyelashes, unable to picture what my mother might have looked like. My father paused for a moment before replying, yes. I met your late mother in Dingbei Commandery. She loved horseback riding most. It's a pity she never got to ride again after coming to the capital with me. Father, do you feel guilty too? My mother was the first offering my father presented to His Majesty. Amidst the power struggles, she was the first to die. I wonder if she regretted it when we reunited on the Bridge of Forgetfulness in my past life. Half a month after the correspondence, the Turkic army won several small-scale guerrilla skirmishes. This was a trap deliberately set by my uncle, waiting for my father and the Turks to fall into it. Though I should have left the battlefield, I now led 2,000 cavalry in a flanking assault on the Turkic encampment. With soft cloth wrapped around our horses' legs for silent night travel, my 2,000 elite troops charged straight toward the lightly guarded main camp. The Turks still dreamt of conquering the south. Prince Godo, son of Kaghan Haile, was inside the main tent at that very moment. Amidst the blaze of firelight, I single-handedly captured Godo alive. In my past life, both Peiyu and my uncle perished by his hand. When Peiyu died, his head was severed from his body. Godo tied his head to a horse's tail and dragged it along the walls of Dingbei Commandery. This time around, it was Godo's turn to die far from home. Report. Deputy General Pei has captured Godo alive and returns victorious. In the command tent, my uncle could not contain his excitement and came out with his men to greet me. Peiyu has fulfilled his mission. Meanwhile, the ambush my uncle and I had arranged also brought frequent reports of success. Only my father would never return alive. Barren hills, withered trees, a field strewn with corpses, crows perched on branches. fixated on the bodies below. My father and his trusted men all fell by the swords of the Turks. On his person was the final secret letter I had arranged for someone to place. It stated that his feigned surrender was a ruse, the genuine defensive plans had never been delivered. I had also forged a tactical arrangement in his handwriting. I did not know if the Turks would search the bodies. If they found the fake tactical plan and marched down a path of no return, that would be best. Of course, if they did not search, it mattered little. Either way, I stand to gain defeating the Turkic army and capturing Prince Godo alive. My uncle's prestige at the frontier reached unparalleled heights. Though we lost my father, it was a minor setback. The imperial rewards from the capital arrived swiftly. I imagine the emperor must have been grinding his teeth in frustration. This time, the honors fell primarily upon me. Oh, it was pay you. His Majesty's golden words, heroes emerge in youth. To encourage me, he granted me the Pei family's noble title. Accompanying the decree was a secret letter from Peiyu. Sis, take it easy. Win slowly. You've earned too many merits, the emperor's even using me to appease you. Almost forgot, deep within the palace gardens. I have a brother who's an imperial consort. In my past life, the empress's family also perished amidst imperial intrigues. Before I departed, I specifically instructed Peiyu to make the most of this situation, forming an alliance with the empress would be ideal. I wonder how Peiyu and the empress are faring now. As night fell, I sat beneath a tree, a pot of wine in hand, drinking alone. I raised my cup to the bright moon, my shadow and I becoming three. Behind me, Hu Jiangnan approached carrying a plate of beef. Peiyu, you. Take care of yourself. Hu Jiangnan offered an awkward, pitying consolation. The entire army knew of my father's death. Those unaware assumed I was utterly devastated. Moonlight fell upon Hu Jiangnan's face. He looked much sturdier and darker than when we first met. I smiled, patting the empty space beside me, gesturing for him to join me. Young Marquis, you've distinguished yourself this time. When do you plan to return to the capital? Hu Jiangnan shook his head. I wish to remain in Dingbei Commandery. Oh, haven't you suffered enough? He replied. It's not suffering. That day, when you sparred with the soldiers, I saw that kind of too in you, that's what makes a real man. My coming to the frontier to serve wasn't arranged by my family. My elder brother is the crown prince of Chongyan Marquis, the rightful young marquis. Back in the capital, I only knew how to eat, drink, and play. I caused trouble, and father called me a good-for-nothing. In a fit of anger, I ran off to Dingbei Commandery to enlist. Perhaps father was right. I really was useless back then. Even after coming to Dingbei Commandery, I relied on others to take care of me, yet still thought myself superior. But I feel different now. Deputy General Pei, thank you for those military strokes the other day. I too wish to become a true soldier. I stood up, patted his shoulder, and handed him the flask in my hand. Whatever the future holds, at least in this moment, he and I are genuine. He tilted his head back and drank it all in one gulp, bursting into laughter. Refreshing. After gathering our things, both my uncle and I felt we should strike while the iron was hot and push straight into the Turkic court. My uncle would hold the rear guard, while I led the assault. Uncle, don't worry. When the champion Marquis conquered Langjiaxu, he was only 22. Heroes have always emerged in youth, perhaps I'm a young prodigy too. My uncle shook his head with a bitter smile, patting my shoulder. Exercise utmost caution. I await your triumphant return. Victory! I raised my sword, and the cavalry behind me echoed the cry, Victory! Imperial decree, swift as a shooting star, bestows the sword. Bid farewell to the sovereign tonight, and take Lulon. Uncle, Wait for me to bring back the head of concubine, I'll make it your urinal. As I led my troops straight into the royal court, the emperor's edict finally arrived. The emperor declared that invading the Turkic court would exhaust the people and drain the treasury. He insisted it was time to cultivate virtue and allow the frontier populace to catch their breath. He intended to negotiate peace with the Turks and marry their princess. The eunuch bearing the edict chased me all the way but failed to catch up. The messenger reported that though my uncle received the imperial decree, he declared I had already led my troops into battle. How could such a momentous decision be made without consulting His Majesty? Before my uncle could speak, the questioning eunuch was berated by the deputy general at his side. Must we also seek the emperor's permission before counterattacking if the Turks invade Dingbei Commandery? When generals are in the field, they need not always obey the sovereign's commands. The emperor's actions stemmed solely from his fear of my uncle's growing power. But he was destined to be disappointed. As I led my troops back, my uncle heard news of our victory and came to greet us. I dismounted and handed him the brocade box. Mission accomplished. The head of concubine, a gift for my uncle. The crowd lining the road erupted in thunderous cheers. 18 years later, the iron cavalry of Great Xia had crushed the Turkic court. The shadow that had hung over the frontier people was finally lifted. I was no longer my uncle's nephew, but a young general renowned for his military genius. One day, when historians meticulously recorded the annals, I too would have my place. After the victory banquet, I feigned illness and stayed indoors. But in truth, I secretly returned to the imperial capital. News of my father's death reached the capital, leaving only my stepmother and Pei Su in the Pei residence. My informant said Pei Su seemed to have a son raised in a separate courtyard. The emperor certainly has leisurely pursuits. But with my repeated extraordinary achievements at the frontier, would he truly dare to bring Pei Su into the palace as he did in my previous life? Moreover, in this lifetime, the empress's father has navigated his position with skill, never giving the emperor cause for suspicion. My return to the capital was specifically to meet with the empress's maternal clan, the Cui family. The Cui family knew many inner workings. Hosting me was the eldest son of the Cui household, Cui Pinghui. Greetings, Marquis of Loyal Valor. The Cui young master was as fragrant as orchids and musk, refined and handsome, a folding fan in his hand. Even still, he radiated charm. The Cui family had only one demand when the Marquis of Loyal Valor contended for the throne in the Central Plains. The future emperor's consort must be a daughter of the Cui clan. I paused, raising an eyebrow slightly. The Cui family certainly had their sources. My younger sister also happened to notice. Cui Pinghui carried himself with refined grace. A gentlemanly demeanor, unassuming yet captivating. He rose to pour tea for me. Pinghui began his studies at 5. Mastered literature by 8. Thoroughly read the classics and histories. And possessed some understanding of military affairs. Among all the young men in the imperial capital, none were more suited to the Marquis than I. The Cui family possesses modest wealth, which could also become a valuable asset to the Marquis in the future. The eldest son of the Cui family truly lives up to his reputation as the most handsome man in the imperial capital. When he gazed at me with such deep affection, I found it difficult to refuse his request. His beauty has led me astray. How do you know I will become emperor in the future? What if I switch places with Pei Yu? Wouldn't you, the eldest son of the Cui family, be at a disadvantage? Cui Pinghui chuckled lightly. Your lordship is no ordinary man. Why would you toil to weave a wedding gown for another? After sealing the alliance with the Cui family, I returned to the frontier with the funds they provided. Since subduing the Turks, people had begun to sense this truth, and countless individuals came to pledge their allegiance. My uncle never sought glory for himself. Everyone knew that the loyal and valiant Marquis now commanded the Zhou family's army. After several probing inquiries, the emperor could no longer sit idly by and summoned me to the capital. Citing unrest in the frontier, I delayed my arrival for another year and a half. During that time, I gathered strength and recruited troops in Dingbei Commandery. When it comes to power, might makes right. I was the one who subdued the Turkic court, and I am the one commanding the heavy troops. As for the emperor, he's nothing but the hollow title of the Great Xiao's rightful ruler. What's bloodline worth? Didn't the Great Xiao's throne itself get snatched from the last emperor of the previous dynasty? Doesn't the emperor love playing political games? Obsessing over maintaining balance? I'll see just what kind of balance he can pull off now. As for Pei Yu, I sent him 800 imperial guards openly, under the guise of celebrating his birthday. Not only would the emperor dare not touch him, but even if he truly lost his mind, he'd have to see if I'd give him the chance. Hu Jiangin has remained by my side. His family is quite content to hedge their bets, unconcerned with his flirtatious maneuvers. Publicly, they staged a drama of severed father-son ties. Yet privately, he's been working tirelessly to curry favor with me. The old fox is quite cunning. Since that heartfelt conversation, Hu Jiangin has been utterly loyal to me, risking his life multiple times to help me reclaim lost territories. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Now Hu Jiangin is like a jade artifact dusted clean, or a sword drawn from its scabbard, sharp and radiant. Is the general heading to subdue Gao Cheng? Hu Jiangin asked. Though he knew the answer. He cannot accompany me. There are matters here that require his attention. Departure in 3 days. Will the general be taking Su Hengji along? I turned my head, a smile in my eyes. Hengji is my personal guard. Naturally, he will return with me. He bit his lip, his neck flushing crimson. What Su Hengji can do, I can do too. Oh, what can Hengji do? Hu Jiangin turned his head, awkwardly replying, anyway. I won't be any worse than him. I lowered my gaze to hide the smile in my eyes, smoothing his collar for him. Wait for my triumphant return. Only after Hu Jiangin left did my uncle emerge, smiling. A graceful lady is a gentleman's ideal mate. That eldest son of the Cui family has also visited several times. Hengji grew up under my watchful eye, but this young master of the Hu family has transformed beyond recognition. Ian, which one do you favor? I smiled. Which emperor has only one beloved confidant? Conquering the world is such arduous work, having a few more kindred spirits by my side isn't unreasonable. My uncle roared with laughter. When do you plan to swap places with Pei Yu? Ian? We'll have to announce it to the world eventually. I've risked my life countless times. If my name isn't recorded in the annals, wouldn't that be a huge loss? Aren't you afraid someone will oppose a woman ascending the throne? Not in the least. Let them challenge me then. I subdued the Turkic court myself. I personally beheaded Khan Huaili. I didn't arrive here by accident. I'm not like those who wait for power handed down by their fathers. What I possess, I have seized with my own hands. My uncle clapped his hands and roared with laughter. Excellent. That's the spirit. 3 months later, I returned having subdued Gao Cheng. From then on, both eastern and western territories were taken over by Zhou's army. The 13 frontier commanderies recognized only the military governors, not the emperor. The emperor sent an edict from afar, ordering me to enter the capital and marry Princess Changping. Traditionally, imperial sons-in-law were forbidden to command troops. Yet the emperor dared not openly demand I surrender my authority. On the day the edict arrived, I cleaved it in two with my sword and returned to my camp with a cold laugh. Does the loyal and valiant Marquis intend to defy the imperial decree? I'd rather ask His Majesty what he is doing. Before the envoys, I sneered savagely. Is His Majesty planning a rebellion? Also delivered was a secret letter from Pei Yu. It stated he would take a death-simulating potion, then be escorted from the palace by the empress and the Cui family. The blame for my sister's murder would then fall squarely on the emperor. Once Peiyu had fled through circuitous routes and news of the imperial consort's death spread throughout Great Xia. The emperor could no longer sit idly by. He knew full well that I now commanded vast armies and had spent years building power in the northwest. Not only did the frontiers lie under my control, but half the commanderies beyond the imperial capital had slipped from his grasp. The emperor, ever fond of maintaining checks and balances, finally yielded. The edict granting the title of prince arrived in Longxi alongside Peiyu. After so many years, Peiyu and I met again. Thankfully, this time, my younger brother and I met alive. Big sister, you really are this. Peiyu showered me with praise. You wouldn't believe it, ever since you conquered Langjiaxu and became undefeated in battle. The emperor shuts up whenever he sees me. I strut around the palace like I own the place. You seem to be quite enjoying your role as imperial consort. I hear no heirs have been born in the palace since you entered. Peiyu gave a shy smile. Well, I was worried the emperor might lose his mind. So I solved the problem at its root, made him permanently incapable. I nearly choked on my tea. No wonder the emperor has no children, it was Peiyu who took care of it. Well. He truly was meant to enter the palace as a consort. A true master of palace intrigue. I hear you and the empress get along quite well? A faint blush touched Peiyu's cheeks. Yaonyang is a fine woman. Sister, once you ascend the throne, remember to grant me marriage to her. Only after entering the palace did I learn Yaonyang had always admired my poetry. We found instant harmony, like a well-tuned Qin and Se. Upon meeting, I curved my lips into a smile. In my past life, though the empress and I clashed for years, Lady Cui always acted with integrity. I respected her character. Who would have thought Peiyu would share such a bond with the empress? At least the emperor did something worthwhile. I asked Peiyu if he wanted to offer incense for our father. Peiyu paused, then smiled bitterly. Better not. I'm afraid I'd lose control and burn his spirit tablet. Peiyu and I shared a knowing smile. After a long while, Peiyu sighed softly. If only I'd been as brave and skilled in battle as my elder sister in my past life, things wouldn't have ended that way. I patted his shoulder. Everyone has their own path. Don't burden yourself with the past. This life, we've both done our best. Isn't that enough? Both Peiyu and I remained cautious, never revealing the truth of our rebirth. Especially around the dead. Their deaths were too obvious. If others had similar experiences, we siblings would be the ones getting beaten. Better to be cautious. Just as the whole world was speculating that the emperor had killed the imperial consort to intimidate me, a rumor suddenly spread. The loyal and valiant prince's half-sister had an illegitimate child, the emperor was the father. I asked Peiyu, but isn't the emperor unable to have children? Peiyu grinned. That child of Peisu is indeed the emperor's. But I've already spread the rumor back to the palace that the emperor is infertile. I raised an eyebrow and smiled, instantly understanding Peiyu's meaning. The emperor was inherently suspicious. How could he not doubt Peisu? If Peisu defected to me, substituting himself for the child, a child not truly his, what could he possibly do? What a pity. That was the emperor's only child in this lifetime. Come. Let's return to the capital and seek justice for our sister. I've already claimed one imperial consort sister in the palace. And another sister bore the emperor a child. With so many women in this world, why must the emperor single out my Pei family for torment? This time, I return to the imperial capital once more. A general on campaign may not return without imperial decree. But now, no one dares block my entry. All know that half of Great Xia's realm is ruled by the loyal and valiant prince. The emperor seated in the capital is but a figurehead. This decaying empire will inevitably reach its end. On the day of my return, the Pei residents held a banquet. My stepmother and Peisu both offered cautious, forced smiles. With father dead, Peisu could not enter the imperial harem. Yet she had a son of dubious parentage, living a difficult life in the capital. Those who knew us understood the tension between Pei Su and me. Even when she used my name to network, she drew scorn. For years, Pei Yu tirelessly spread rumors that my mother died under suspicious circumstances, that my father deliberately killed her to marry my stepmother. Now that I keep my distance from my stepmother and stepsister, no one says much. Only that it's retribution. Brother, do you truly wish to be a man without loyalty or righteousness? At the banquet, Pei Su held her wine cup and spoke with heartfelt sincerity. My child, too, carries the Pei bloodline. When he claims his ancestral heritage and ascends the throne, you, my brother, will naturally enjoy boundless glory and wealth. One stroke of the brush cannot write two Peis. Having your own nephew become emperor is both legitimate and proper. Is that not splendid? I nearly laughed out loud. Pei Su, who taught you to speak such nonsense? You are beyond redemption. Your illegitimate son, does he truly deserve the throne? But rest assured, I still have use for you and your son. Pei Yu. Pei Su's face darkened. Do you truly intend to rebel? Do you not fear disturbing father's peace in the afterlife? You bore a child out of wedlock. Yet father didn't rise from the grave. That shows his magnanimity. If he could tolerate you, he can tolerate me too. I reached out, took the wine cup from Pei Su's hand, and with a cold laugh, forced it into my stepmother's mouth beside me. Pei Su tried to stop me, but how could a frail woman like her overpower me? She could only cry out in pain and collapse onto her stepmother. Pei Yu, you've committed matricide. I tapped the table, coldly observing my stepmother's face, now ashen with fear. This wine. You brought it. Pei Su. How appalling. Did you two, mother and daughter, intend to harm me? I am an imperial official. Do you know the punishment for poisoning an imperial official? You and that little beast of yours won't need me to speak, someone will see you off. Even in this dire situation, Pei Su still dared to poison me. So this is the kind of fool the emperor favors. I suppose it's a case of birds of a feather. Do you know why the emperor sent you to deal with me while he stays hidden? Because he wants to kill two birds with one stone. You think bearing his child will secure your place. But he never intended to acknowledge that child at all. Pei Su burst into tears. Impossible. If you hadn't interfered, I would have entered the palace long ago. I chuckled. Don't tell me you've been feeding yourself lies. You can fool your buddies, but don't believe your own nonsense. Why did the imperial decree to enter the palace land on Pei Yan instead? Did she beg for it? You and the emperor, two cowards hiding in the shadows, shooting arrows from afar. You crave power yet fear responsibility. No such free lunch exists in this world. You. I shrugged. Oh my. Little sister. Look. Your mother's dead. Watching my stepmother writhe in agony, I slowly curved my lips. Pei Su still lived in this mansion, thinking she was battling a sister with the emperor's backing, that a cup of poison would solve everything. But I'm no longer the motherless eldest daughter they can manipulate. Pei Su. How does it feel to have killed your own mother? Pei Su turned, her eyes burning with hatred. Don't hate me so much. Even if you do, what can you possibly do to me? After leaving, I had Pei Su's child brought before me. Damn brat. He looks just like Pei Su and his father. Seeing him makes my blood boil. The child tilted his head up, his gaze toward me filled with hostility. Are you Pei Yu? I nodded, waiting for him to continue. Rebellious traitor. This realm belongs to my father. Kneel and bow to me now, or my father's armies will make you regret it. TSK. What an unpleasant child. I bent down. After all, he was just a child. The bloodthirsty aura I carried, born of slaughter, turned his face pale. I had no desire to bicker with a child, I merely wanted to see if he bore the emperor's likeness. Very good. Quite the resemblance. Take him to the palace. Prince Zhongyong. How dare you trespass through the palace gates? The emperor's guards brandished their swords. Their voices tinged with trepidation. They fear me. Of course they fear me. Power, whose hands it rests and determines who commands the world. Step aside. I've come bearing good news for the emperor today. What good news? Someone plucked up the courage to ask. I glanced at him and kicked him out with one swift kick. Who do you think you are? Asking me questions? The vermilion gates remained unchanged from my past life. And the palace interior was just as I remembered it. In my past life, I died before these very vermilion gates. Sword in hand. What did the emperor say then? He said, "You're overestimating yourself." Now, it's my turn to question him. After I entered the palace, Su Hengzhi also led his troops into the capital. My army was stationed 10 li outside the city walls. Within the city, doors were shut tight. Even the common folk sensed the crisis. Everyone hid indoors, unaware of the sky outside. The emperor sat upon the throne in the grand hall, seeing me enter without summons, radiating a murderous aura. He forced a calm expression. "Lord Zhongyong," he thundered, "are you plotting rebellion? Do you fear the condemnation of the people?" I curved my lips. "Why, Your Majesty? That sounds rather frightening." "I am not rebelling," I declared. "I come to you today for the sake of the great Xia dynasty's succession." I lifted the child from behind me, who was frozen in terror. "Your Majesty, look at this child. Does he not resemble you? This is the son my sister risked her life to bear for you. Are you pleased? With my command over the army and the backing of noble clans. Even if I forced the emperor to abdicate today, he could only hurl insults at me before slinking away to make room." The emperor's face twisted with humiliation. He closed his eyes briefly before finally forcing out, "He is my son. If your Majesty acknowledges him, then so be it. At tomorrow's morning court session, let us name this child crown prince. If your lordship were to seize the throne outright, none would dare speak against it. Why then the need for a crown prince?" After discussing state affairs with Cui Pinghui, he couldn't help but ask me. I curved my lips into a smile, offering no explanation. Taking the imperial capital without bloodshed would be ideal. My soldiers have fought alongside me through life and death. If possible, I wish to spare them the toll of power struggles. Pinghui, you've been to Dingbei Commandery. The people there endure great hardship. But look at the imperial capital. When Pei Su was favored, a single garment he discarded could sustain a family of 3 on the frontier for 5 years. The common folk are truly simple-hearted. As long as they have food to eat and clothes to wear, they can endure even the hardest times. A ruler who doesn't care for his subjects doesn't deserve such honest, steadfast people. Cui Pinghui bowed to me in the manner of a subject. "My lord, can you guarantee the people will not suffer in the future?" I laughed aloud. "While I live, I certainly can. As for after my death, that becomes the responsibility of those who come after." Pinghui, nothing in this world remains unchanged. When the great Xia was founded, was it not to rescue the people from the fires of suffering? I took Cui Pinghui's hand. "My only wish is that, at least while we live, we may ensure this generation enjoys food and clothing in abundance." Cui Pinghui's gaze softened as he clasped my hand in return. "This is precisely my wish." I dared not ask. The next day, the emperor grudgingly acknowledged Pei Su's son. Pei Su finally realized her wish, entering the imperial palace as consort. As for the empress, she divorced the emperor before me and the ministers. An empress who divorces? Unheard of. The emperor nearly lost his mind. I smiled. "You'll have one soon enough." The empress bore a faint resemblance to her former self. Alone. She performed the grand bow before me. Your Excellency truly sets an example for all women under heaven. That day, upon learning it was you who subdued the Turkic court in Gaocheng, I wept within the palace walls. We women, obedient to our fathers at home and to our husbands after marriage, had you not shown me a path, I would never have imagined a woman could achieve such deeds in her lifetime. Once Your Excellency's great cause is accomplished, my sisters and I wish to take the imperial examinations and serve His Majesty with utmost devotion. Excellent! I clapped my hands and laughed heartily. This is precisely the kind of spirited woman I need. When the time comes, you and my younger brother will serve in the same court. Don't let him outshine you. The Empress smiled gently. She couldn't be called Empress yet, for she had a name, Cui Yao. When we return to dust, her name will be recorded in the annals of history. Half a month later, the Emperor and Empress would host a banquet in the palace to welcome me home. Su Hengji smoothed my robes and chuckled. Our Emperor's trying to pull off a hongmen banquet. Isn't he? He'd need the skill for that. When I entered the palace, I still wore my sword at my side, drawing curious glances. The Emperor and Pei Su sat at the head of the table. Pei Su eyed me with mischief, scheming some new foolishness. Once everyone had arrived, Pei Su seemed unable to wait any longer. He stood up, pointed at me, and declared loudly, I have summoned you all here today to reveal a truth. The loyal and valiant prince is actually a woman. She is not Pei Yu at all, but my eldest sister, Pei Yan. The court officials at the banquet were stunned by this news, their murmurs of discussion filling the air. The Emperor's eyes twinkled with amusement. Pei Yan, you, a woman, have been appearing in public. Did you truly believe you could deceive the heavens and the sea? If you apologize now, I may overlook your past transgressions. Otherwise, the century-old reputation of your Pei family will be ruined by you. Pei Su chimed in. Sister, you're not afraid to admit it, are you? The ministers are all here. Do you dare to undergo a physical examination? The two of them traded barbs, seemingly clutching at a perfect handle. Yet I couldn't help but laugh aloud. I am indeed a woman, what is there to be afraid of? I admitted it plainly, leaving Pei Su and the Emperor stunned. You, having admitted it, why haven't you confessed your crimes and faced justice? Face justice? What justice? Your Majesty, have you lost your mind? I drew my sword from its scabbard, cleaving the table before me in two. Scanning the room, no one dared meet my gaze. The borders are now secure. The nation stable, achieved through my own blood and sweat. You wouldn't dare think my achievements go unrecognized simply because I am a woman. Would you? I turned to face the assembled ministers. Wherever my gaze fell, no one dared meet my eyes. Cui, the clan leader, spoke first. Of course not. Your achievements are known throughout the realm. Who would dare question them? The Cui clan has long known your true identity and stands ready to aid you in your endeavors. His voice trembled slightly as he continued. Your Excellency has endured immense hardship in campaigns across the north and south. I only worry, has Ping Hui been tending to you properly? I have long admired Your Excellency. Ping Hui replied. Thank you for your concern. Cui's words silenced the murmuring court. Indeed, even as Pei Yan, my military achievements and the people's support were undeniable. The others snapped to attention, inwardly cursing the Cui clan's cunning old fox. They began considering whether any suitable young men in their households could be sent to my side. I gripped my sword and strode forward. Your Majesty, do you know how long I've waited for this day? I merely wish for you to witness clearly how you fell at the hands of a woman. Pei Su, your son is now the crown prince. Once the emperor dies, you become Empress Dowager. I watched Pei Su as I spoke slowly. Which do you choose, your son, or His Majesty. With that, I took Pei Su's hand and pressed a dagger into it. Pei Su trembled, her gaze fixed on the emperor. Your Majesty. Mother Pei. Don't trust her. Pei Su held the knife but did not move. The emperor, however, reminisced with her about the good old days. His eyes filled with deep affection. Pei Su couldn't help but be moved, leaning in closer. In the next instant, the emperor suddenly snatched the knife and plunged it into Pei Su's neck. Save the emperor! The emperor cried out in panic. Yet no one in the chamber dared approach. Several royal elders looked on with pained expressions, their faces ashen. Yet none dared defy my wrath to save the emperor. Everyone knew the emperor was a spent force, while the true rising star was this loyal and valiant Prince Pei Yan. The world had already changed its master. I intercepted the blade in time, leaving Pei Su with only superficial wounds. Your Majesty! How dare you treat me thus? Pei Su picked up the blade and struck back in fury. The emperor had already been kicked in the chest, his lungs pierced. With Pei Su still holding the knife, he was inevitably at a disadvantage. In the end, Pei Su ended the emperor's life with his own hands. You forced my hand. The emperor tumbled to the ground, dying in a most undignified manner. Pei Su turned, grabbed the terrified, sobbing crown prince, and screamed like a madwoman. I am the Empress Dowager now. My son, you shall be emperor. Before the words faded, she froze, staring down at the cold steel blade in the crown prince's hand piercing her own chest. Wiping his tears, the crown prince said, I avenged father. Now, Lord, you will help me ascend the throne. Pei Su's body arched backward. I seized her throat and whispered, Fool! Did you truly believe I would spare you? I merely wished to witness their family devouring each other. Behind me, the ministers stood frozen in silence. I turned with a cold glance. What are you waiting for? The emperor is dead. Hurry and enthrone the crown prince. I touched the crown prince's blood-stained cheek. How pitiable. A nation cannot remain without a ruler for a single day. Crown prince, ascend the throne. 3 years later, the new emperor, citing his own lack of talent and virtue, abdicated in my favor, claiming he was merely occupying the throne. After several refusals, I ascended the throne at the minister's insistence. I renamed the dynasty Zhou, established the era named Jianwu, and appointed Shui's son as the primary consort. I also named Su Hengji, the northern general, and Hu Jiangnan, son of the Marquis of Chongyan, as secondary consorts. The empress's accession brought a breath of fresh air to the court. From aristocratic families to commoners, women now entered public service and stepped onto the political stage. The empress also established the position of Grand Princess. After 3 generations of female rulers, when people later read ancient texts declaring women unfit for public office, they could only marvel at how the world had changed beyond recognition. After my ascension to the throne, discontent naturally arose among many royal clans, bringing both crisis and new beginnings. But this posed no real threat. After all, I had conquered the realm through martial prowess. Anyone wishing to oppose me would have to carefully weigh their own capabilities. I prioritized the welfare of my people, lightening taxes and corvée labor to allow the populace to recuperate. I opened border markets for trade and revived agriculture and sericulture, ushering in a scene of flourishing prosperity. During another spring hunt, Pei Yu accompanied me. After discussing state affairs, he suddenly chuckled. I hear the northern lands sent twin princes as tribute this time, both exceptionally handsome. Sister, shall we welcome new additions to your harem? I shot down a wild hare with an arrow and curved my lips. We'll see when the time comes. Emperor Taizu of Zhou, Pei Yan, excelled in warfare and military strategy. Under his brother Pei Yu's name, he led campaigns to Yanmen Pass, subduing the Tujue tribes to the north, and later conquered Gaochang, never suffering defeat. When the last emperor abdicated in his favor, Emperor Taizu ruled with benevolence and compassion. During his reign, governance remained peaceful and orderly, punishments were rarely enforced, and criminals were few. The people devoted themselves to farming, their clothing and food abundant. This era is recorded in history as the Jianwu Golden Age. The end.